So we're giving the price recommendations, and hopefully they take all of them, but sometimes they don't. And I think especially early on in our partnership with them, there's going to be a little test and learn. Like one of the things that is a bigger discussion at the beginning of our onboarding is what's your minimum price, but mostly where the sensitivity comes in is what's the maximum price.
Tired of outdated systems holding your attraction back?
GateMaster believes technology is part of the experience, transforming every touch point into an opportunity.
Imagine seamless online booking, effortless mobile ordering, and data-driven insights at your fingertips.
Ready to revolutionize your guest journey and maximize revenue?
Power your attraction with GateMaster.
Discover the future at gatemaster.com.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got a question for you.
Okay.
All right. So if you were going to pursue a PhD, would it be in economy?
It would probably be in roller coasters.
Is there such
Not
a thing?
designing roller coasters, just riding them.
Right, either. I love it. I love it. Would you ever think of being so involved with numbers that you could get a PhD and then start working for a company that recommends pricing to attractions?
I don't think I could wrap my head around the amount of factors that go into pricing that you could have a PhD in it. And that is not me diminishing that. That is me just acknowledging how far beyond my pay grade that is.
I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing.
Yeah, I figure we're kind of similar in that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, today we get to talk to Harry Tomasides, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of Digonex, and they employ, I think he said 9 PhD economists to do exactly what you just said, which is, again, above your pay grade, above my pay grade, to really set the strategy and the algorithms for the dynamic pricing that many of us experience at attractions.
Yes. So we're going to talk all about dynamic pricing for this. And as we know, we're not heavily into the weeds with the numbers and particularly with pricing. With that said, Harry really gave us such a great overview of all the factors that go into dynamic pricing. What is dynamic pricing? What's the difference between dynamic and variable pricing? They are not the same if you thought they were. What's the operational impact of it? And just so many different things that we talked about. It was just really fascinating in the way attractions price their admissions.
And one of those things that he talked about that is certainly a goal of a lot of attractions is to dynamically price their days so that they can kind of spread out their crowd, right? So you don't have one day that's got all of your attendance and then there's nobody there for the rest of the week. So he really talks through that, not only operationally, but also sort of technically, which I was glad he didn't go too far into the tech, into the philosophy, but enough that a layman like myself could follow.
Yeah. And we also talk about, if you compare, say, an experience of visiting an attraction like a theme park or a zoo or an aquarium or a museum with, let's say, a concert or a live performance or a sporting event, you're buying a ticket for a specific event, right? Here's the concert happening on this day, the football game happening on this day. With an attraction that is open year round, there might be 365 events. So every day is a separate event and therefore needs to be recalibrated and refreshed in terms of what that pricing can be when it's fully dynamic and synced to the algorithm.
which I think is another maybe throwback to our conversation about Epic Universe, because we talked about how we get to be excited about this industry because it is so unique. And again, not to diminish the event industry or the live entertainment industry, because there's a lot of really smart and dedicated people in those industries. But what you just said is that every day, 365 days, you're opening the gates. You've got a different event happening. You've got different people coming in. It's a very different business model. And I think some people, probably not the people listening to this podcast, but the people that don't listen to this podcast may not see what a what a what a job that really is. So that's an aside sort of takeaway for me, just in terms of when he mentioned that every day is a special event or a separate event. That's so true. And I remember back to my days of working at a park, and every day was different.
For sure. Absolutely. So should we turn on the algorithm and get to this dynamic interview with Harry Tomasides?
Let's put it in the cart.
Hey, Harry, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are really excited to chat with you today. How are you?
I'm doing well, Josh. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. Thanks for spending some time with us today. To jump into this, if we could get started, if you could just tell us about yourself, tell us about your background, your career.
Yeah, so just a little background on me. I've been in the attractions business going on 11 years and starting with Digonex. And prior to that, my career was in media. So I was a sales manager for radio stations, which actually got my interest in pricing, because one of the things I did was manage inventory and advertising for the sellers. So a long time in radio, and then transitioned to attractions through some consultation gigs I was doing.
And so now, Harry, you're at Digonex, and
Yeah.
a little bit more about what you do there.
Yeah, so at Digonex, I am the Chief Revenue Officer, so I oversee primarily all the sales. I have a sales team, marketing with my partner Kelly Degenhart, and so really, working with clients and making sure a lot of what I do still to this day, and it's been this way for 11 years, is education. So really, I think probably some of the things that we're going to talk about today is kind of the sales process. How does an attraction message dynamic pricing? How do they implement dynamic pricing? So that's really what I do, is a lot of education, making sure that an organization is comfortable with it before they go live, and that they are following the best practices. So I oversee all that. Again, have a team of people that help me out as well.
Excellent. So for those who might not be familiar with Digonex, as we get into start exploring these topics, wonder if we could start, if you could just give us an overview, tell us about the company.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background on who we are. We are strictly a dynamic pricing company. So we create customized and automated pricing algorithms for our clients. And we're a global company. We work with over 130 organizations in North America, the UK, Australia, in live entertainment and attractions. So a couple of things that make us unique is we have a team of PhD economists. So we have 9 PhD economists on staff, and they're the ones who develop the solutions that our clients use, and they all have expertise in pricing science. So that's something that's really unique. The other thing is we also have just a broad array of ticketing partnerships as well. So we work with Gateway, we work with Viva Ticket, we work with Ticketure, we work with Accesso, we work with Alltrue and Acme. and so on. So we have so that's a big part of what we do is really develop these integrations so we can execute dynamic pricing in the proper way. The other piece of it is we provide our clients, like what our core deliverable is to provide our clients price recommendations. So we provide the price recommendations, but then the clients can act on those. So they can accept the price, they can reject the price, they can override the price. We are typically giving price recommendations on general admission tickets, and we provide the price recommendations daily. And again, we work with probably 15 different platforms, and we provide impact reporting for our clients as well. There's a lot that goes in the data, but that's generally who we are. We've been doing this for attractions. We've been doing this for 2014, and Digonex has actually been around since the early 2000s when no one knew what dynamic pricing was.
Well, actually, Harry, that's where I'd like to start with a little education, because we've said dynamic pricing a couple of times, and I think
Yeah,
a lot of people probably have an idea in their mind, especially in the industry,
yeah,
what this is. But
yeah,
you've got PhDs working on this stuff, so
yeah.
a little bit more about what this is. Sort of open up the hood, if you will.
Yeah, so I think probably the best way to start with that question is what are organizations doing today? What are the common practices? And then I'll kind of lead into Digonex. So what we typically see before we work with an attraction is they're doing one of two or three things in terms of pricing strategy. So the most common one today still is static pricing. So it's one price. It doesn't vary at all. It's pretty easy to manage. Like you just, at the end of the year, when an organization is doing a budget, they're saying, should we take the price up a buck, $2, whatever it is. So it's not really responsive to the market, but that's static pricing. The next one is variable pricing. So sometimes that gets confused with dynamic pricing. So variable pricing may be peak, off-peak pricing. It's really still a static price, but maybe, winter pricing is different than summer pricing, or weekend pricing is different than weekday pricing. And then there's something too called like dynamic discounting, where an organization might just dynamic price just the online portion and not the walk-up portion. And so where Digonex comes in is in with dynamic pricing, in our view, it's the ability to create a solution that utilizes a lot of different factors and variables. So not just what's the capacity today or what's just the weather today. We use a lot of different factors and variables. We're looking at the data every day, which is why our partnerships with our ticketing systems are so important, because we're looking at that data and then we're able to respond to whatever is going on in the market. So while it's not real time, it's daily. And so we're able to see this is what's happening in the market right now. And then we're able to provide the price recommendations for that. So, and I'll get into the different factors and variables that we use today. But it's also a way to fully optimize the online ticket prices as well as the walk-up price, because we are dynamically pricing the walk-up price.
I wonder if you could share a little bit of where, the attractions industry kind of fits in with adoption of dynamic pricing across a wide variety of industries. I think kind of, at the forefront, people might immediately think of hotels and airfare on airlines. And, I was sharing with Matt before, we started recording. I worked at Universal Orlando many years ago. That was about 15 years ago. There was a guest who was frustrated because he couldn't get a brochure in the mail that had the list of all the prices, including all the hotel rates. And I was like, well, we don't print those. And even when it's digital, there's an asterisk of, prices, subject to change at any time. So I'm curious, as far as is the attractions industry still, in an emerging phase of adoption of, of dynamic pricing as it relates to other industries? And I know you mentioned live entertainment with that as well. And I'm curious if
Yeah,
you're gonna get the full scope, really.
yeah. So I would say that attractions are still or in the early stage of it. It's certainly grown through the years. We work with over 70 attractions today. But it's still growing, and I would say that you mentioned live entertainment. Live entertainment has been doing it longer. Not quite like what we do, but they've been doing it a little longer, and I think airlines was the first. But our approach is a little bit different as well, because it has to really be kind of bespoke to not only the industry but also to the organization in terms of what they need. But I think there was a piece that came out earlier this week. I don't know if anybody saw it, but it was on NBC News, where Arrival, which is a trade organization, were quoted. They did a survey, and last year, so in 2024, 12% of attraction organizations were prioritizing dynamic pricing and figuring out how to do it. This year it's 37%. So it's absolutely emerging, and the more that there's adoption of it with organizations like who we work with, then more and more people do it, because it's a way to be affordable as well as capture the upside revenue for those who wait.
So one of the things that just popped into my mind is, oftentimes smaller operators will look at the big boys, Disney and Universal, and say, well, they can do that, but is that something that I can do? So I'm curious, like, what you're seeing in terms of the size of the attraction or the makeup of the attraction. Does that have an impact on maybe even their willingness to adopt dynamic pricing?
Yeah, I think certainly the scale of the operation. I think a pricing strategy, no matter what the size of the organization, whether or not they use a firm like Digonex or not, is vital. So I think that even if you start doing some testing and learning with pricing, I think that's a place to go. And sometimes we find with some of the smaller organizations, I mean, typically, like, our sweet spot is anyone who is maybe doing $4 to $5 million in general admission or general admission ticket sales, but something less than that. I certainly think that there's some strategies that they can put in place as well, just to kind of test things out. And I think one of the key points is how it's messaged, right? So it's not dynamic pricing. Like, none of our clients call it dynamic pricing. They'll call it plan ahead pricing. They make it very transparent to their guests on what they're doing, why they're doing it. So they don't necessarily need Digonex to do that. But I think with a pricing strategy, whatever that pricing strategy is, it's really important to be super transparent to your patrons.
Would love to expand on that, a little bit. Do you advise, anchoring around the highest price point, and then if the guest pays less than that, then the guest sees extra value? If you come on a Tuesday, you're going to get a discount, rather than here's our price, and then if you come on Saturday, you're going to pay more. So curious, because I know the perception and really kind of managing just the price sensitivity around it has got to be a huge component to it.
Yeah, so we're giving the price recommendations every day, and I think the transparency piece of this, Josh, is, we advise all of our clients to have some sort of visual that displays what the prices are. So most of our clients today have like a dynamic pricing calendar. So if you go to Seattle Aquarium or Shed Aquarium, and you'll see on their website, they have different prices for different days. and they have some clear messaging around that. The other thing with most of our attractions is they only take prices up as opposed to take pricing up and down. And so then they can make the marketing promise of, if you buy today and the further out you buy, you're guaranteed the best price. And so I think having the guest that, that they can pick the price that's the best price for their budget and their schedule, and the organization is providing a lot of options for them, I think is really important. Does that help answer your question? Because I think that's really the key with all of this is, I think where, when people get scared of the term dynamic pricing, there's a lot of things that might get conjured up in their head, like it's not fair, the prices are going to change out from under me. But the truth of the matter is, with all of our clients, they at the end of the day have final say on what it is. We'll have a minimum price and a maximum price, meaning it can never go over a certain price. So there's never like fear that it's going to be a price that goes amok. And again, it's that messaging, that transparency. All of our clients have an FAQ on their website. So they talk about, this is why we're doing it, and here are the benefits to you, the customer. And the organizations that message the best, I think, really have the best results.
So Harry, you mentioned that there needs to be a different maybe approach or outlook based on the industry that you are enabling dynamic pricing in, or plan ahead pricing, whether it's attractions or events and that type of thing. Can you talk a little bit more about how that different thought process kind of plays out?
Yeah. So with let's say with live entertainment, we do a lot of work in live entertainment, so that's in venues, it's capacity, it's like seated venues, and there's a lot of different complexity in there. If somebody has 20 different price levels, what's the differentiation between one price level and another price level? And then if they're running multiple performances through over a number of days, so that's a little bit different. And then with those, we also, there are a lot of organizations that will take prices up and down. So the messaging with live entertainment isn't necessarily plan ahead pricing, because there's a lot more finite opportunities within live entertainment. Whereas with attractions, what's different is we look at every day as a separate event. So, and we just treat it that way. So so at the least, it's 52 different or 365 events throughout the year that have unique characteristics. And it can get even more complex where an organization like, like we have organizations that they do day part pricing. So it's a different time in the morning, different time in the afternoon, different time at night. And so there could be 4 different time frames that a guest could come in, and then we would price it discreetly. So with attractions, we look at a lot of different factors and variables, maybe a little bit different with live entertainment. So with attractions, we certainly take in Google Analytics as a key part of our solution. So understanding, when a potential patron is coming to the website, are they converting into a sale? What does that mean? The marketing strategy of an attraction is going to be different than a live entertainment. So understanding that marketing strategy when that hits. And then I think the biggest thing are the goals and objectives. So the goals and objectives are the key part here in terms of the customization. So a goal for, let's say, a zoo or aquarium or a theme park, maybe, we want to, increase revenue, but we still want to make sure that we're accessible to the audience. So how do we solve that? Or how do we move people from, we want to move attendance from peak to off-peak days. How do we do it? So we ask, so that's really where the differentiation comes in, is we ask a lot of questions. It's our economists that do that, ask a lot of questions up front about the organization, and the types of questions that we ask of an attraction versus a performing arts organization, live entertainment, is completely different. And so that's the other thing. And then, things like weather is a huge piece of what we bring in. And, it's, if you think about it, weather is different for an aquarium or a museum because they're an indoor, versus a zoo or a theme park, to where rain could impact them. Rain for it just, so those are things that really matter. And then just understanding their historical data. So the price elasticity is going to be different than for live entertainment maybe than for attractions, but I think a lot of it again is the types of questions that we ask up front, and then how we build and customize the solution based on that.
So you mentioned weather, and you mentioned that there are a lot of different factors that go into it. And without getting too much into the secret sauce of the algorithm, I'm wondering if you're able to share just maybe some of what those other factors are that go into it.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, I think one of them is Google Analytics. So that actually, and all this gets automated into the solution. So taking Google Analytics in, we'll even take things in like macroeconomic factors. So some years that's kind of benign. This year, 2025, not necessarily so benign, because things are changing all the time. So those are the things that we bring in. And then in terms of the analysis work, that's really done by our economists, and that's how they, so but it's really more about the factors we bring in and then the questions that we ask our clients. Just the other thing, which may or may not be helpful. So, the things that our economists look for, as they're, because they still have oversight of the price recommendations. They have sign off on the recommendations that go out, but they're gonna look at things like price elasticity. So what's the willingness of a patron? What are they willing to pay, not only for the specific day, but are there opportunities of cross elasticity among days or different times of day? And then things like substitution effects, meaning, if it's a goal of an attraction to generate more season passes or memberships, can we adjust the solution to where it motivates, while we're not dynamically pricing memberships or season passes, get them to use that as a lever to have them buy more of those. So that's like a substitution effect. But anyway, that's all I have.
Okay, no, that's great. That's great. I was going to say a minute ago, you started to kind of allude to something I saw in a LinkedIn post that you were associated with, which was kind of finding that sweet spot between maximizing revenue and basically keeping the guest happy so that they, are willing to pay that price. And we've kind of gone into, I think, some of the technical things behind that. But, as you're making those daily recommendations to your parks, are they ever saying, well, no, I just don't think they're going to pay that much? Or is there hesitancy there that you're like, hey, our PhDs have said this is probably going to work, so give it a try? Like, can you kind of walk through that process a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're giving the price recommendations, and hopefully they take all of them, but sometimes they don't. And I think especially early on in our partnership with them, there's going to be a little test and learn, like one of the things that is a bigger discussion at the beginning of our onboarding is what's your minimum price, but mostly where the sensitivity comes in is what's the maximum price. So say an organization today, they're doing a static price of $29, and let's say they're now going to have a price range of, and I'm just making it up, $20 to $35. And so that's a big conversation. And so we'll have those price recommendations going in. And then, early on, we can even narrow that if they're more comfortable with that. But I think what we do on an ongoing basis is our economist will say, and they'll have a client success team, day-to-day contact, and would say, look, they're butting up against this $35. We see a lot more opportunity here. Are they willing to relax it? And so we've had clients, we did an IAPA webinar a couple of years ago, and the client that was on there was like, we never thought we'd go over $38. And now they're comfortably, there are some days that are $44, but some days that are $35. So it's just a lot of different choices. And so I think it's just making sure, again, there's that messaging of saying there's a broad array of prices here. If you don't like the price for this Saturday, maybe look at a Saturday a week from now or 2 weeks from now, and that's most likely going to be a lot less than what maybe the Saturday that you're looking for and going today. So if there's flexibility in the schedule, they can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are in control.
And then that ties really into the importance of the messaging of that and training your guests, but not only training your guests, but also training your staff to be able to communicate with the guest and spinning it in a positive way. And like you just said, is of if Saturday doesn't look good for it, let's look a week out, be able to plan ahead. I'm curious too of the operational impact of dynamic pricing, because we talk about maximizing revenue, increasing per capita spend. So there's the financial benefit of it, but also from the guest experience as well of reduced queues, lower crowds, higher guest satisfaction. I've got to imagine that this has kind of a halo effect of additional benefits in addition to the very compelling tangible revenue benefit.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think we have anecdotal we have stories where a client had always on the weekend had 14,000 people at a certain event. When they did dynamic pricing, it completely smoothed out the attendance because you have all those different prices. So I think smoothing out the attendance by using price as a lever is absolutely what we do, and then all those other things. I mean, I think all those halo effects that you're talking about happen, and it's not just about revenue, but it's about all those other things as well. Yeah. And I think there's really a story too with being really accessible to the community, because I think that's always like a sensitive conversation. Like if we're going to do dynamic pricing, well, what does that mean? Are we going to price out our guests? And the fact of the matter is, most of the prices that are in the market today with our clients are less than the static price that they had previously. It's just that as it gets closer to the day, it goes up.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And you did kind of refer, I think earlier a little bit too, to some of the frustration or maybe even some of the misunderstandings around dynamic pricing. And, when you go to a cart and you put something in there and then all of a sudden when you actually go to pay for it, it's higher or it's changed. I know that's something you said you guys don't do, but it happened to other people. So it's kind of like that Amazon effect, right? If it happens on Amazon, I should expect it in a good way someplace else. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about that sort of dynamic. No pun intended.
Yeah, no problem. Good. That's a great question. I think that's like if that happened to me, I would be really mad. If I went to buy a ticket and then I went to check out and it was much more expensive. I will say I've seen it happen in live entertainment. But no, we, we're providing price recommendations once a day. And so it's also the way the ticketing system works, where it's just once they put it in the cart, the ticket is going to stay that price. So we're not like providing price recommendations in real time. So that's that's where that is. Yeah, so it just doesn't happen. But trust me, when there are stories that come out, like there was recently a concert with Oasis where that happened, and all of a sudden dynamic pricing was getting all this bad press. And so we had clients calling us and saying, "Hey, what do we say?" And so we helped them with that.
Does that have to do with the timer when you're in the checkout of you have X amount of time to check out? I know part of it is releasing the ticket back into the inventory, but that also could be that you're guaranteed this while you're checking out as well.
Yeah, so I think in the case of like Oasis is really where this happened. There was such a long queue of of people waiting to buy the ticket, and so tickets kept selling, and so that ticket just kept going up. But that certainly doesn't happen with us at all. Yeah.
Um, Harry, you also mentioned you touched on briefly, and I'm wondering if we can go back to it of the impact of membership or annual pass sales, and I'm wondering if we could tie that in with it as well.
Yeah, so we have some clients where one of their objectives is to increase memberships or season passes. And so we can adjust we can build the solution to where, when we're thinking about what that maximum price is, to say, hey, we can use this as a lever to motivate someone to buy a membership. And we've seen situations in it's sustainable where an organization, although we're just dynamically pricing general admission or special events, where they'll see a 20-30% increase in memberships just because of how the general admission is being priced as well. So that's part of the scoping process that we go with our clients and the questions that we ask them as well.
So continuing on the education train, I guess you said that you're looking at everything day by day, which I totally appreciate. You said, if I heard you right, that you don't dynamically price memberships and annual passes. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, so for my education as an HR person who's not involved with pricing at all, can you explain the difference between those ticket types and why you would not dynamically price those other two products?
So the annual pass it would be like a voucher, right? That you can just come in anytime you want. So we certainly can provide guidance on how to maybe look at pricing those, and we've done that. We do that with we have done that with attractions as well as performing arts. But in terms of an ongoing daily feed with price recommendations, I think those are kind of like fixed price. And so, but it's really the daily prices that we're looking at. So, yeah.
Okay.
Would that, though, make it more challenging to properly price an annual pass or membership? Because if you're using it as a baseline, I know in some cases just use kind of the simple math of 2.5 times the general admission price. Well, what's the general, what's our anchor price that we're working on? And then kind of tying in with that, does the perception of value change for an annual pass, that if I came in on the most discounted pricing, the annual pass is a little bit further away, versus if I came in at peak pricing, then the annual pass is actually more within reach and is actually much more valuable?
Yeah, so I think that's part of the scoping strategy that we would have. I mean, most of our clients in the first year, they don't change their prices for the memberships. then we'll learn as we go on, and if they want to change that. But I think it depends on how far out they purchase. But I think part of that strategy is if they want to sell more season passes or memberships, and it makes more financial sense for them to convert into that, then that's if the client and the organization is fine with that, then that's part of the strategy. So Digonex is really looks at the whole pie.
Mm. So I'd like to switch gears just for a moment, because there was something interesting I saw on your website in talking about the commandments of the organization. And the first one was admit your mistakes. And now I've looked at a lot of company values and mission statements and things like that, and admit your mistakes is not typically at the top of the list. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how that plays out within the company.
Yeah, sure. So I think so it's our founder, Jeff Smullian, and he really, came up with the 11 commandments. So anybody could go to digonex.com and see those. But I think the admitting your mistakes are, I think in terms of internally, because we're all human. And if there are, something that we could do better, or I think it's all about being humble and working as a team. And if there's something externally as well, if there's something that could be done better, admit that. I think it's all about being humble, and that we're all in this together. And that's what I think the spirit of that first commandment is.
I also think it's interesting that there are 11 commandments, and now I think, well, are there sometimes 9, or are there sometimes 12 commandments, depending on depending on right?
Are they dynamic?
Dynamic commandments.
We'll just keep adding them.
Yeah. So we've talked primarily about attractions and a little bit into live entertainment. I asked earlier, as far as kind of where the attractions industry fits in with other industries in terms of adoptions. Are there other industries that you see that haven't adopted it yet, that you think of, maybe even just as a consumer, you ever shop in the aisles of the grocery store, be like, oh, the price of eggs? Because I know that's been pretty volatile, quite a bit. I'm curious as far as other industries that have the potential to embrace dynamic pricing but haven't.
Yeah, so I think attractions is such a broad umbrella. So I think there's still room, like with tour operators. I think there's some desire there, but some education there. The other thing that we discuss internally are, parking. I think there's a lot of opportunity there in parking. And
you just mean parking in general, like city garages. So
yeah, or airport parking, things like that. I think there's opportunity there. I think there's more opportunity even within transportation that's not being done today, especially like where there are many different routes for, let's just say it's a ferry tour operator, and maybe there are, all these different stop off points. I think there's opportunity there. So I think there's still definitely some subcategories within attractions for sure. And also outside of that, I think parking and I think you're going to see, even like, which I think is a little tricky, but we've seen a little bit of it in other forms of transportation, like the tollways and things like that. Although, yeah, so.
Awesome. Well, Harry, this has been a very dynamic conversation, but there's one question that I have to ask. Was not on the list of questions that we were going to send you, but it's because now that I see the room that you're in, I think I see a guitar behind you.
Yes.
Are you a guitar player?
I am. I'm a musician. Absolutely. Excellent. Singer, songwriter, and I love it. So that's my passion.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we'll have to have you back and have you sing us a song.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And, as we just wind this down here, if people want to get a hold of you directly, if they want to learn more about Digonex, where would you send them?
Yeah, so just go to diginex.com and or my email address. I'm happy to answer that. It's htomasides@diginex.com. Happy to field any questions as well, or you can just inquiry just via the website as well. So there's a form to do that. But yeah, so happy to have any conversations with anybody, even if it's just for education, because I think it's still a big part of what we're doing today, is just educating folks.
Well, I know for me, this has been a big education on dynamic pricing, and certainly what Digonex does in the world of attractions. So thank you again, Harry, for your time. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.